In the heart of the wide land of Eriador, where the weight of ages presses upon the earth and the wind whispers with the secrets of forgotten kings, there lies a place known as Bree-Land. Its gentle hills and quiet valleys at first glance seem unremarkable, a peaceful backwater far removed from the great struggles of Middle-earth. Yet for those who listen and linger, Bree-Land reveals itself as a place thick with history, where every stone, tree and road bears witness to the passing of forgotten glories and long-departed peoples. Bree-Land is old, older than many would believe, and its story stretches back through the mists of time to an era where the great kingdom of Arnor ruled the north, and even beyond, to when men first wandered into these parts. It is a land both ordinary and mysterious, where the mundane lives of its people brush against the edges of deep ancient powers. Long before the great wars of Middle-earth, before the rise and fall of mighty kingdoms, the land that would one day be Bree-Land was but a wild and untamed wilderness. Dark woods and rolling hills covered the landscape, and strange creatures moved silently beneath the stars. In those days, few men had yet ventured so far west, for the lands to the east and south were still fertile and filled with opportunities. Yet some came. They were a hardy and curious folk, the descendants of the first men, wandering westwards in search of new lands to settle. These early men, who would one day become the people of Bree, were different from their kin to the south. They lived simple lives, farming the fertile soil and building their villages in the shelter of the great Bree Hill, which stood like a guardian over the surrounding lands. Even in those early days, Bree was a crossroads of sorts, a place where paths met and mingled, where travellers and traders passed through on their way to distant lands. These settlers found the land good, and they prospered. They built villages on the slopes of Bree Hill and in the valleys beyond, Bree, Staddle, Combe and Archet. The villages were small, and life was hard, but the people endured, for the land was generous and the forests full of game. Over time they grew comfortable in their quiet corner of the world, unaware that they had settled upon a land steeped in older and darker powers. For Bree-Land was not untouched by the ancient wars of Middle-earth. The great kingdom of Cardolan, once a part of the northern realm of Arnor, had ruled these lands in ages past, and before that, the kings of the north had walked these roads. Beneath the hills and forests of Bree-Land, the bones of long-dead kings and warriors lay buried, their spirits sometimes stirring in the night when the moon was high. For many centuries, Bree-Land existed on the fringes of history, a quiet place where simple folk lived out their lives, largely untouched by the great wars and conflicts of the world. But that would change with the rise of the Kingdom of Arnor, the northern realm of the Dunedain, descendants of the great kings of Númenor. Arnor was a kingdom of vast size and power, and under the rule of its early kings, its influence stretched across Eriador, including Bree-Land. The people of Bree, however, remained largely independent, even as the kingdom of Arnor flourished around them. They paid little heed to the affairs of kings and battles, content to till their fields and tend their flocks. And yet Bree, situated as it was at the crossroads of the Great East Road and the Greenway, became a place of significance, a stopping point for travellers, merchants, and even the king's messengers. As the centuries passed, the kingdom of Arnor fell into decline. It was sundered into three smaller realms, Arthedain, Cardolan, and Rhudaur, and the lands of Bree found themselves caught in the struggles between these successor states. In the long wars that followed, Cardolan laid claim to the lands of Bree, and though the people of Bree paid little heed to the politics of the day, they were not altogether untouched by the conflict. Darkness crept into the land as the shadow of the Witch King of Angmar, the dreaded Lord of the North, spread across the region. The Barrow Downs, once the resting place of the noble dead of Cardolan, became a place of dread as the Witch King summoned the Barrow-wights to haunt the tombs and curse the land. The people of Bree, though never directly caught in the battles, began to live in fear, for the roads became dangerous and strange shadowy figures were seen wandering the land. Tolkien writes, "The hills seemed to brood over the land, dark and silent, as if they remembered some long-forgotten sorrow, and in the distance, pale lights flickered upon the Barrow Downs, where no living thing should dare to go." With the fall of Arnor and the fading of the Dunedain, Bree-Land once again slipped into quiet obscurity. The wars of the North had ended, and the kingdom of Arthedain, the last remnant of Arnor, was destroyed. The Rangers of the North, the secretive descendants of the kings, became the silent protectors of Bree-Land, wandering the wild places and guarding the regions from the shadows that still lurked in the dark corners of the world. In these years, Bree and its neighbouring villages grew into a peaceful and prosperous place, untouched by the great events of the world. The people of Bree remained a practical, hard-working folk, caring little for the affairs of distant lands. The presence of hobbits in Bree-Land also became a notable occurrence, as the small folk settled in the village of Staddle and lived alongside the men in quiet harmony. Yet even in these years of peace, there was a sense of isolation about Bree-Land. The Greenway, once the great road of the kings, fell into disuse and ruin, overgrown with weeds and haunted by strange figures. The Great East Road, though still travelled by merchants and wanderers, also grew quieter, as the lands to the east became wilder and more dangerous. The people of Bree did not venture far from their homes. The woods that bordered their land, such as the dense and tangled Chetwood, were places of mystery, where strange creatures roamed and the trees seemed to whisper with ancient voices. And always, in the distance, loomed the Barrow Downs, their dark mounds visible on the horizon like silent sentinels guarding the forgotten past. As the Third Age of Middle-earth drew on, dark times began to stir once more in Bree-Land. Though the people of Bree continued their simple lives, the shadow of Sauron, the Dark Lord of Mordor, began to stretch even to this quiet corner of the world. Strange travellers began to pass through Bree, rangers, merchants, and wanderers, but also dark-cloaked figures, who moved silently in the night, their faces hidden beneath their hoods. Tolkien writes, "They came without a sound, slipping into the village like shadows. No one saw them, yet everyone felt their presence, the chill they left behind, the unease that clung to the air like a fog." Rumours of danger spread through the land. The once busy roads grew even quieter, and those who dared to travel spoke of a feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes following their every step. Barliman Butterbur, the innkeeper of the Prancing Pony, often heard unsettling tales from travellers who stopped at his inn, and though he tried to dismiss them with a laugh, he could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. It was during these dark days that Frodo Baggins and his companions arrived in Bree, bringing with them a great peril that none in the village could have imagined. The One Ring, long thought lost, had returned to the world, and with it, the Nazgul, Sauron's terrifying servants, came hunting. On the night of Frodo's arrival, a great unease settled over Bree. The Black Riders passed through the streets, searching for the hobbits, and though no one in the village could say for certain for what they sought, the fear they brought with them was palpable. The Prancing Pony, once a place of warmth and welcome, seemed darker, its familiar comforts overshadowed by the looming threat of the Black Riders. Tolkien writes, "The shadows lengthened and the night grew colder. The wind whispered through the streets of Bree, carrying with it a sense of dread, as if the darkness itself had come to call." After the departure of Frodo and his companions, Bree-Land found itself changed. Although the immediate danger had passed with the hobbits' flight, the people of Bree could not forget the terror they had felt in those days. The Rangers, once viewed with suspicion and mistrust, became more visible, watching over the land with a renewed vigilance. Aragorn, their chieftain, though still known only as Strider to most, had played a pivotal role in the protecting of the hobbits from the Nazgul, and his presence became a reassuring, if mysterious one, in the minds of Bree's people. The quieter roads of Breeland saw an increase in the movement as the War of the Ring intensified across Middle-earth, though most of its people remained unaware of the full scale of the conflict. Bree itself became a place of refuge for those fleeing the war, though danger still loomed close in the wild lands beyond. When the war was finally ended with the crowning of King Elisar, the people of Breeland were astonished to learn that the mysterious Strider, who had wandered their roads for so long, was none other than the King of Gondor and Arnor. Under his reign, Breeland found itself once more part of the ancient kingdom of Arnor, though life in Bree itself changed little, and the village continued as it always had, its people content to live their simple lives, even as the world around them shifted into a new age. Breeland remains today as it has for centuries, a quiet, unassuming place where the paths of Middle-earth's great powers and stories cross, if only briefly. Its hills, forests and ancient roads still bear the weight of history, but its people endure as they always have. Bree, with its ancient inn and its weathered roads, continues to stand as a refuge for travellers, a place where the past and the present meet in quiet harmony. Yet the land is not without its secrets. In the forests of the Chetwood, in the mists of the Barrow Downs, and in the forgotten ruins of the Old Kingdom, the shadows of the past still linger, and those who wander too far from the safety of the villages may yet find themselves face to face with the echoes of long-lost kings and ancient evils. For Breeland, though peaceful, will forever be a land where history whispers and the shadows of time stretch long.